Hey maid, get the food ready.
My husband glanced at me lying on the sofa, clicked his tongue, and kicked my foot. He then took a beer out of the fridge and started drinking. I felt a simmering anger for the first time, being kicked and called a maid. Unable to move and frozen, I endured the continued verbal abuse from my husband and finally forced myself to sit up.
Is that all you have to say?
Today is my birthday, so hurry up and get ready. My mom and the others will be here soon. If you're going to say that, why don't you prepare it yourself? You're telling me to prepare my own birthday.
The moment my husband raised his hand, someone's voice echoed in the room. With his hand still raised, my husband turned towards the source of the voice. Then his body began to tremble. Little did I know that this incident would greatly change our future. I'm Amy, currently 31 years old. I work as a temp. I married Kyle when I was 30. Our relationship was short, only a year, but as we were both in our 30s, we fought about marrying quickly and having children. Kyle works at the city hall and is a bit rigid in his thinking. However, I've always found irresponsible or frivolous men unappealing, so he seemed perfect for me. I'm meticulous myself, and Kyle is always pleased when I diligently finish the household chores. Seeing my husband like that made me happy, so I put even more effort into the housework. My husband has a chronic illness. It's diabetes, a lifestyle-related disease. However, in his case, it's more due to congenital factors. That's why I was especially careful with our meals. He loves sweets, so to keep him from unhealthy store-bought snacks, I prepared homemade treats almost every day. This had a strong positive impact and his health visibly improved. But there was something that concerned me.
You know, exercising really does make a difference.
He would say reflectively, looking at his blood test results. Of course, I acknowledge my husband's efforts, but I also take care every day to make our meals varied and well prepared. Such frustrations build up inside me. However, when I see my husband smiling gently, those frustrations just melt away.
Hey, I put a lot of effort into our meals, right?
Haha, yes you do. Thanks for that, always.
With such exchanges, we would laugh together. But then my pregnancy brought changes to our relationship. I have a fertility issue and had been undergoing fertility treatments since we got married. We were told natural conception was impossible, so we started with in vitro fertilization. After a year of infertility treatments, we finally conceived our first child. At first, both my husband and I were overjoyed at the arrival of our long-awaited child, but my pregnancy turned out to be much more difficult than usual, plagued with severe morning sickness from the early stages. I couldn't swallow anything and was constantly struck with intense nausea. I continued to vomit without eating or drinking anything, and it was so severe that I was advised to be hospitalized during a prenatal checkup. Initially, my husband was worried and comforted me, saying if hospitalization would help, then we should do it. I then spent about a month in the hospital, surviving only on IV drips. As I entered the stable period, I gradually began to eat morning sickness-friendly food and was discharged with the doctor's permission. But that didn't mean I was completely recovered. I was discharged just because I could manage minimal fluid intake, but the nausea and dizziness continued. At the time of discharge, the doctor had explained this to my husband, but when will you start feeling better? You're already in the stable period, right? As my poor health persisted, my husband became increasingly irritable. I had been off work for a long time, and it wouldn't have been surprising if I had been laid off. Feeling guilty for the inconvenience I caused, I pushed myself too hard at work to make up for it. As a result, I was so exhausted when I got home that I couldn't move or do anything. Despite explaining this to my husband repeatedly, he showed no understanding. Instead, don't be so lazy. Other pregnant women manage to do their tasks. You work fewer hours than me, so at least do some housework. Laundry, cleaning, meal prep, you're not doing anything. My husband compared me to pregnant women who were working energetically and blamed me. I continued to struggle at work, not being able to perform adequately. Moreover, being blamed by my husband made me blame myself even more. Why can't I be energetic like them? All these pregnant women working hard despite the difficulty. And then there's me. I tried going to bed early, soaking in a bath, and doing things that seemed good for my health, but nothing helped. As my health issues persisted, I began missing more work. After discussing with my supervisor, I decided to voluntarily resign from my job. It was because I was causing a lot of inconvenience to my colleagues, and my presence prevented the hiring of new staff. However, my boss was concerned about my health too.
It's a tough time for you now.
I understand because my wife also had a hard time during her pregnancy. Working doesn't give your mind a rest. And lately, you've looked really exhausted. Just focus on having a healthy baby and come back to us later. His kind words brought me to tears, as I was feeling completely shattered. Of course, I discussed resigning with my husband, but
Quitting your job? Normally, people work up until maternity leave. You're just being lazy.
saying that, he left the living room. All I could do was watch his back. From then on, I tried even harder with the household chores. My hospitalization and ill health had led to an increase in my husband's eating out and convenience store meals, and this was reflected in his blood tests. I thought I should at least provide him with healthy meals, so I did the shopping and cooking, but even that was a huge task for me. Somehow managing to prepare a basic dinner, I then collapsed on the sofa. When my husband came home, he clicked his tongue upon seeing me. Without a word, he ate the dinner I had prepared. After dinner, he didn't clear the dishes and instead nudged me, still lying on the sofa.
Hey, are my shirts for tomorrow washed?
Ah, sorry, I could only manage to make dinner.
Stop making excuses and get them ready. I have to work tomorrow too.
I'm sorry, I'll have them ready by morning. No vacuuming, no laundry done.
No vacuuming, no laundry done.
Muttering complaints, my husband headed to the bathroom. Listening to the sound of my husband showering, I couldn't even breathe out, just swallowing my breath. I lost my parents in a car accident when I had just become an adult. As a result, I had no one to turn to. Fortunately, my in-laws accepted me as their own daughter. They were also concerned about my health issues due to the pregnancy.
If you ever have any trouble, let us know right away.
That's right. And don't hesitate to tell Kyle what you need him to do.
Pregnancy is really tough. I remember how bad my morning sickness was when I was pregnant with Kyle.
It was a tough time back then.
My in-laws nodded in agreement, looking reflective.
But you know, your dad helped me a lot.
It's amazing how in a marriage, being supported by the person you love helps you overcome anything, she said. The two of them smiled warmly. They had repeatedly told my husband this, but
I understand. I'm doing everything I can.
he would say, deflecting their words. I wanted to tell them that my husband didn't understand at all, but I held back. My sister-in-law also worried about my health and contacted me regularly. She sent me ready-made meals and snacks that suited my condition. Having been hospitalized herself for severe pregnancy sickness, she truly understood my suffering.
Are you managing to stay hydrated? She would ask.
I'm not vomiting much anymore, but the nausea just won't go away.
That's tough. I made some plum syrup this year. It helps a bit with nausea, so I'll send some your way.
Thank you. That would be a big help.
Don't overdo it, okay? Really lean on us when you're in trouble.
Those warm words made my heart swell. But the more I received kind words, the more I felt rebuked, unable to seek help. And so the days continued with me doing household chores while being scolded by my husband. The baby in my belly was growing healthily, but my condition never settled. Lying exhausted on the sofa, my husband approached me.
Hey, it's my birthday next week.
Oh, right.
That day, my mom and others are coming over. So, could you clean the room and prepare dinner?
How many people are coming?
3. Mom, Dad, and my sister. Her husband is working and their son has lessons.
I was speechless at the enormity of the request. Preparing dinner for my husband alone was already a struggle, let alone cleaning the room and preparing a meal for 5 people. But my husband just said what he wanted and left me there. I couldn't even follow him. I never got the chance to tell him it was impossible and spent the week trying to clean up as best as I could. The number of dishes at dinner decreased, and though my husband clicked his tongue, I somehow endured. On my husband's birthday, he took the day off and we got up late. Knowing I had to prepare, I went out for groceries early in the morning for dinner. With my significantly grown belly, I staggered through shopping and returned home. I had ordered whatever I could online for delivery, so I received those packages. The trip to the supermarket had worsened my condition, and I took medication to suppress the nausea. Even though the medication was deemed safe, I had been avoiding it to minimize any risk to the baby. But I had to make sure my husband's birthday went perfectly. If it failed, I couldn't imagine what he would say. I was desperate, but still my body wouldn't cooperate. Exhausted from the shopping, I couldn't move, and my vision was spinning. I thought I might be anemic, but I couldn't even manage to get my medication. At that moment, my husband woke up. Seeing me lying on the sofa, he clicked his tongue and kicked my foot.
Really, are you okay like this from the morning? You can prepare dinner for tonight, right?
While saying this, he took a beer from the fridge and started drinking. My husband, who is weak with alcohol, quickly turned red in the face.
Hey maid, get the food ready.
He said roughly, for the first time being kicked and called a maid. A simmering anger bubbled up inside me. Unable to move and frozen, I couldn't endure the continued verbal abuse from my husband and forced myself to sit up.
Is that all you have to say?
Huh? Of course it's my birthday today, so hurry up and get ready. My mom and others are coming soon.
If you're gonna say that, why don't you prepare it yourself?
You're telling me to prepare my own birthday, he exclaimed.
At that moment, as my husband raised his hand,
Kyle,
the voice of my Phil echoed in the room. With his hand still raised, my husband turned towards the direction of the voice. And then his body began to tremble. There stood my Phil, Miel, and sister-in-law, the three of them.
Why? It's not time yet, my husband exclaimed.
what do you mean why, Kyle? What is the meaning of this?
My Phil shouted angrily at him. My MIL and sister-in-law, worried about me, quickly came to my side.
Are you okay? You're sweating terribly.
What happened?
I asked them to bring me my medicine first, and after explaining, I took it. While my husband was being scolded by my Phil, the two of them comforted me. After a while, as the medication started to work, I began to feel a bit more settled. I explained the situation to the three of them. I spoke about my health issues due to the pregnancy, and how my husband couldn't understand it. How I was ordered to prepare for his birthday celebration today, and how it was my fault for not being able to do so. As I shared this, the three, who were usually kind, turned to reprimand my husband. They questioned how someone who couldn't even take care of his own wife could become a father. Watching my husband, I felt no satisfaction, only blaming myself more. I thought that if only my health hadn't deteriorated, none of this would have happened. In front of his parents, my husband apologized to me. The thought that he was apologizing brought tears to my eyes.
Amy, you should divorce him.
What?
I was shaken by my sister-in-law's words.
You just thought you're the one to blame, right? I get that.
You can't perform well at work. You're causing trouble for others, and at home, you're being blamed by your husband. Of course, it's important to be humble, but not everything is your fault, Amy. It's not right for a husband who should be sharing the burden of pregnancy to blame you. It's not that you weren't enough. You tried your hardest. The one who didn't acknowledge that is this foolish brother of mine.
She said firmly, holding my hand. Didn't I tell you my pregnancy was difficult? I had to stay at my parents' house.
I couldn't even prepare my own meals. Just staying alive was all I could manage. And guess what my brother here said to me at that time?
What did he say?
He told me to stop being dependent, to go home and take care of my husband.
What?
You see, that's the kind of person he is.
I thought he might have changed a bit after marrying you, but he didn't. I don't believe he can change anymore. Divorce him quickly, don't worry. Our parents will help with the child, you'll be okay. Hearing this truth made me feel as if all the blood had drained from my body. And hearing it as someone else's story made me realize the abnormality of my husband's behavior. Listening to this conversation, my MIL and Phil exchanged looks and sighed deeply.
Yes, there was that incident.
I'm truly sorry for having such a disgraceful son. Indeed, considering Amy's situation, it would be better to get a divorce.
We'll make sure he pays alimony and child support. We'll help out with any shortfall.
First, come to our house. It's not easy to suddenly leave your home. We'll look for a new place for you slowly.
Encouraged by my MIL, Phil, and sister-in-law, I left the house, leaving my downcast husband behind. Afterwards, with the help of my in-laws, I rented a new place. Being in the later stages of mid-pregnancy, their support made the move smooth. Following my in-laws' advice, I arranged for a formal document for alimony and child support, and divorced my husband. Despite the tumultuous times, the baby in my womb continued to grow healthily. Perhaps due to the absence of daily stress, my frequent health issues began to subside. Successfully gave birth to my son. I continue to interact with my in-laws, and I feel secure in my first experience of parenting. I have also arranged for my son's daycare and the resumption of my original job. Of course, I hadn't been in contact with my ex-husband until then. One day my cell phone rang. When I checked it, I saw my ex-husband's name. Remembering that I hadn't been in touch since the birth of the child, I answered the phone.
Hello?
Ah, good, Amy. It's been a while.
Yes, it has.
The kid's been born, right? Glad to hear. How are you feeling?
My ex-husband spoke hesitantly, trying to find the right words.
What do you want?
Can we get back together? For the kid's sake?
I can manage on my own as long as I get the alimony and child support.
I can't handle it alone, I can't do housework, and I can't manage meals perfectly like you, Amy.
It's starting to show in my health checks, and I've been feeling unwell.
Is that so? That's tough, but no, I can't.
Don't say that. You know how hard it is to manage diabetes without proper care. Right, Amy?
I'm raising a newborn right now. I don't have the capacity to take care of you two.
Besides, I'm not your housekeeper. If we can't cherish each other as a family, there's no point in being together.
I was wrong back then. Please, I'm begging you. Help me.
No way. I'll be sure to tell your mother about this conversation.
As soon as I said that, he hung up the phone. I looked out the window, gazing at the drifting clouds. I really married a pitiful man, didn't I? Hearing my son's cries, I got up from my seat. From now on, I want to live my life to the fullest with my lovely son and my kind in-laws.